Mr. John Parkerson. Welcome to our show and thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Solange. It's a pleasure to be here, and I appreciate you inviting me to the show.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, we know you're very, very active. We see you involved with so many initiatives in the city, in Atlanta, in the state. And we would like to ask you, what is the specific role of the Consul of Hungary here in Georgia and any other territories that you're part of it?
Yes, well, I was selected by the Hungarian government to represent them specifically with respect to trade business development between the Southeast United States and Hungarian companies. So I don't perform many of the traditional consular activities like visas, passports, and those kinds of things, but I'm solely focused on business. And so for that reason, I have an additional title. I'm the Foreign Economic Counselor of Hungary as well. So it's a little bit different from some of the regular consular activities.
Yes, yes. And that makes it very interesting because many businesses would like to know how they can create some connections in Europe, in specific countries. And I know that Hungary is not just a beautiful country. I have I was blessed to be able to be in Budapest and Lake Balaton. I mean, it was an amazing experience to be in that gorgeous country. So, but also I know that the business and the economy is very active. So please tell us a little bit more about that and how business here locally can connect with business in your country.
Well, it's not difficult to connect with business in Hungary. There are quite a few U.S. companies, including Georgia companies, that have very large presences in Hungary. I mean, they've found that it's a great place to do business. The language is no barrier because most Hungarians speak English. They're educated in their universities because they have to. Hungary's a small country with a very unique language. So if you don't adapt and speak English and German, then you're sort of lost in the international business community.
Yes.
So Hungary's a member of the European Union and has been for many years. And so it's an integral part of Europe. It's one unique thing about it is it does not use the euro. Like Great Britain before Britain's departure from the European Union, it's retained its own currency, the forint, and that's been to an advantage in Hungary. So it remains a very good place to do business, good government incentives, fairly low labor costs in comparison with some of the Western European countries, but equally high educational level. So you have skilled workers in Hungary, and big companies here in Georgia. For example, AGCO, the agricultural equipment manufacturer, has a huge presence in Hungary. So does Coca-Cola. They produce a bottled water for the European market in Hungary. But there are quite a few others. I mean, I could go down a list of U.S. companies that's determined that it's to their business advantage to invest in Hungary.
That's wonderful. So how would you suggest that an American company, let's say a Georgia company, how do they want to start the first step? Would they have to approach the consulate, or how do you suggest they do?
Well, they don't have to. I mean, they can go directly, but I think it's useful that we have consulates in the United States that can offer business advice to get them started. I believe if you had to just, go into Hungary cold without having any connection at all, could be quite difficult. And it would be the same with any country, really. Hungary's not unique in that respect. So the good thing is that Hungary has a good network of consulates here in the United States, plus a large trade office in New York City and a trade office at the embassy in Washington. And then I work directly, for example, with the Hungarian Investment Promotion Agency and the Hungarian Export Promotion Agency, which provide links between businesses. So I know the individuals and I can help them get started if they really are interested in a Hungarian presence.
Wonderful. So the first thing really, it sounds like it would be to contact the consulate here in Georgia, let's say.
That's it's a very useful way to start. I think that's probably the best use of a company's time when rather than just exploring through other channels. I maintain, for example, a good network of Hungarian companies and U.S. companies that are doing business there, so I can link them together. And I represent quite a few Hungarian companies here in the U.S. and a small handful in Georgia.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. And that begs the question. Please tell us a little bit about what you do besides being the consul. I know that you're an attorney.
Yeah.
Okay. We would love to know more about what you do as an attorney, and how does that complement being the consul of Hungary?
Well, it does complement very well. I was an attorney long before I became consul of Hungary, and my legal practice is international business, and I'd always had a focus on Central and Eastern Europe. I'm not going to identify any of my clients here, but my largest client, for example, is from that region. It's a Czech company, but they have good contacts with many of our Hungarian companies, and I've managed to parlay that consular experience into some clients for my law firm.
Yes, yes. Oh, I can only imagine. And look, like I said, you and I have known each other for many, many years, and I know you've done much more work beyond that. I know that you have been the head of a large organization here, World Trade Center, and you've done a fantastic job doing that. But you do initiatives all the time. I know recently, Museum, I believe they were part of some specific event that it was in honor of your country. Please tell us more about that.
One of the most significant historical events in Hungary in recent memory is, you may, and I think your audience knows probably, that Hungary was one of those countries behind the Iron Curtain. It was ruled by a communist government through 1989. In 1989, it gained its independence, joined the Western world, so to speak, threw off communism, became a parliamentary democracy with a capitalist form of economy. Many of the Hungarian Americans in the United States have their roots from 1956, from those who fled the country. And just this past year, the Hungarian American community and the government of Hungary, throwing in some funding, raised funds to build to have a granite statue of a 56 freedom fighter produced by a Georgia sculptor named Stan Mullins, and it's on display in Atlantic Center, behind the big arc there in Peace Park, and that was quite an event. There were maybe 100 or so veterans of 56 who were still living at that opening event. So that was a big cultural, that was a more of a community cultural event, but we were very, I was happy to support it. I was on the organizing committee, and those kinds of things draw me into the community because I'm not Hungarian. I'm a typical Georgian, and you probably noticed by my accent that I'm certainly not Hungarian. And I get asked all the time by Hungarians and others why a person like me represents Hungary, and the answer is because of my international business background. And Hungary, when it emerged from communism in 1989 and wanted to quickly integrate into the capitalist system of Europe, they needed all the business contacts that they could get, and so I was asked to help them strengthen ties to this part of the United States and build their economy and those partnerships.
Yes, I remember you telling me this story, and I find it fascinating how that worked out. I don't know if you care to go into more details, but it was very interesting how you were asked to become the consul, I thought.
I can give the very short version of that, because
Yes.
if you turn me loose with that question, it might go on for a half an hour or more. From the
Okay.
answer. But the very short answer is probably about 15 years ago, when I was the in-house legal counsel for Delta Airlines. Delta wanted to expand service into Central Eastern Europe based on some old routes that it acquired from Pan American Airlines when Pan American went bankrupt.
Yes.
And one of those routes was between JFK, New York, and Budapest. And that became one of my projects at Delta Airlines. So I started working on that, and I became closer and closer to the Hungarian authorities in the process of doing that work. And I led a trade mission to Hungary, Czech Republic, and Romania from Georgia. And we did a reciprocal mission. I was still at Delta, and the ambassador called me and said he had heard about what we were doing down here in Atlanta to promote Hungarian-U.S. ties. And, he had picked up on the Delta story that they were going to begin service to Budapest, and called me and said, let's host a Hungarian business delegation to Georgia. And so I became involved with the ambassador. Here's the rest of the story to make it short. The ambassador happened to be a pretty decent amateur guitarist who, like many of us of my generation, like to relive their youth by, forming some sort of garage or basement rock band. And the ambassador, it turned out, had his own blues rock band in Washington. And it was made up of diplomats who similarly were aging men that wanted to relive their youths. And they practiced every week in the Hungarian embassy. And so when he came to Atlanta, he told me that he wanted to jam one night with some local blues rock band. Yes. And so we went to Blind Willie's, which is in Virginia Highlands, a blues club.
Right.
And there was, fortunately, that night a receptive band. I had explained to them about the ambassador, and he ended up playing with him the rest of the night. And that sort of sealed our friendship. And
yes,
I started getting phone calls from the embassy. Well, the foreign minister's coming to town, or we're doing this event for these people, and would you come up to have dinner at the embassy or at the ambassador's residence? And we just became very close friends. And somewhere during that process, we had the first flight to Budapest, and I was on the flight, and I was able to invite a certain number of people, VIPs, to come along on that flight. So I invited the ambassador and his entourage. And on the return flight, he asked me if I would represent Hungary. I said, I'm not Hungarian. And he said, of course, we don't want a Hungarian. We want a local business person who knows the international community and can help us.
Yes.
So that's how it came about.
Well, I tell you, it's an amazing story for many reasons, but one of them, think about, the music is what connects the world. And here's an example of how you were able to become involved as a diplomat through music. You created a friendship, right?
Solange, you hit it right on the head, because music is one of those soft diplomacy tools. And this particular ambassador was a proponent of soft diplomacy to promote Hungary and to get his points across. Yes. And in fact, he ended up writing a book about soft diplomacy. And today, when so much of diplomacy is hard diplomacy, where you're threatening or hard bargaining, soft diplomacy is where you make friends through other media, like music or art. And
I believe that very strongly. I mean, I think what an amazing story to be told, because now hopefully we could apply sort of the same kind of strategies, right, through the world right now.
It's needed.
It's needed. But I tell you, I think that, your country, Hungary, is such a special country. because now you have a president who happens to be a 44-year-old woman. Uh,
Well, that's right.
Catherine Novak is amazing. I mean, we all need to take notes how this country is doing this, right?
You did research, Solange, because Hungary is a parliamentary democracy, and the head of state is the president, and she's quite a distinguished individual who's risen rapidly in the party.
Yes.
It's a populist government. They're very popular with the people, but part of that's because of the Hungarian history and the uniqueness of the people and where they've been in the past.
One area that I think that I would like to ask you if you can describe the beauty of the country. First of all, Budapest is such a unique, beautiful city, and then Lake Balaton. I mean, it's just an amazing lake, and so people are so nice and friendly. Tell us a little bit about the tourism, please.
No, that's a very broad question, and I love it. I like that you've gone there. Hungary is a beautiful country. It's rather small in area, frankly. It used to be an empire. It was part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. And of course, we know what happened at the end of the First World War when Austro-Hungary was on the losing side. And so that's when Hungary lost about 2/3 of its territory and quite a bit of its power at that time. Yes. So the people have that hanging over them. It means that the bordering countries have very large minority populations of Hungarians. If you go a few miles into Slovakia, or if you go a few miles into, Romania's huge Hungarian population. The largest state of Romania was the largest state of Hungary, Transylvania, until the end of the First World War. So you have this a little bit of a tension there in international relations, sometimes created by that situation. But the people are fabulous, and I have to say I get such good receptions from them, and I have so many friends that are Hungarians. I wouldn't trade it for anything. And probably one of the best experiences of my life is learning about Hungarians and learning why they think as they do, why they behave as they do as a nation. And it's just a fascinating subject. But they're a country highly cultured, and it's really, you have a 10 million population. Budapest is one of the smaller capitals of Europe. It's only 2 million people in Budapest, which tells you there's a very large rural population in Hungary. And that's really, I've grown to love both sides, both the urban Budapest, which is fabulous for its opera and music and composers and food, but also the rural is very attractive. And when I go to Hungary, I try to get outside of Budapest for part of the time just to visit wine regions. It's a wine culture, and go to Czech Republic for your beer, but go to Hungary for your wines, and they're incredible. Yes. In that little country, about the size of our state of Georgia, it's actually a little smaller than our state of Georgia in territory. There are 22 recognized wine regions. And of those 22, I've been to 11 so far, and I'm trying to work my way down the list.
Yes.
It's a great hobby. So there are really two sides of the country. The eastern half of Hungary is mostly flat. It's a plains. And Budapest is the divider. The western part is very hilly, and the Danube River is the dividing point between east and west, and that runs right through the center of Budapest.
Yes.
And so you've got the hills of Buda on the west bank and the plains of Pest on the right bank, and it's all kinds of contrasts in that country. And part of the Consular Corps in Atlanta. That's approximately 70 representations. Most of them are honorary consuls, which we weren't going to get into that distinction, but they're all consulates. There are about 26 career consulates here, which are staffed by career diplomats. But we form a single consular corps, and we meet monthly. We have programs, speakers. I'm the secretary of the Consular Corps. It's actually a nonprofit organization that's organized under the state of Georgia. We're all credentialed to the U.S. State Department as diplomats and recognized by the state of Georgia by way of the U.S. State Department. So we try to do things together, but at the same time, we realize that there are those from larger countries, some more prosperous than others too, that have fully staffed consulates here. I mean, Hungary's business in this part of the United States is nowhere near as large as Germany or France or Belgium or you name it, United Kingdom. Or Brazil going the other direction in South or Mexico and Central America. So, so those have career staffs in their consulates. And then the smaller countries like Hungary, Czech Republic, Denmark even have honorary consuls. And so they're not full-time career diplomats. That's the distinction, and we can probably go greater into that, but don't have time. But the point is, the Consular Corps likes to think of itself as sort of an exclusive group of people that represent countries, represent international in Atlanta, and we collaborate. I see the French Consul General all the time. The Swiss Consul General is one of my closest friends. I've had dinner in his home. The Dutch, you name it. We don't see distinctions based on which countries are more prosperous than others or have a bigger place in international business and trade. So it's kind of a fun organization. And then once a year, the state of Georgia organizes a consular tour where the Consular Corps goes together as a group, those who can go, to a different region of Georgia each year, and we become acquainted with that part of Georgia. This year, it was Southwest Georgia, including Thomasville and Bainbridge and places, Albany, cities like that. So each year it's a different area, and we, I don't really need a lot of familiarization with the state of Georgia because I was born here, but I'm always surprised at what I learn every time I participate, because there's so much more, you're always learning more, even about your own home.
Yes, please tell us how people can reach you, or perhaps the consulate in case they wanted to connect for Hungary.
Solange, and thanks for asking me. And I'll give that contact information, but if I could just give a couple of sentences, I wanted to make a point that Hungary is really on an upward trajectory, and its interest in becoming established in this part of the United States is growing. I mean, since I started 14 years ago as the honorary consul, it's night and day. And now I can't handle alone all of the inquiries I'm getting from Hungarian companies that want to form partnerships or establish a presence in this region. And so for that reason, I've established recently a small consulting business that just focuses on assisting Hungarian companies enter the U.S. market. And I have a Hungarian business partner who's a local Hungarian American that works with me on that. And she would kill me if I didn't mention that we have P&S, I'm the P, she's the S, international strategies that assist Central and Eastern European companies. And my contact as consul, though, and I would love to entertain any inquiries, whether it's about, hey, what should I eat? What should I drink? Where should I stay in Budapest? Any question you may have. And my email is john.parkerson@outlook.com. Or you could call me at my phone number, 404-213-5366. Okay,
wonderful. Well, it's been delightful having a conversation with you, and I look forward to connecting again. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Solange, and it's always been fun being your friend. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. I feel the same way. Thank you so much.